Hi, I'm Dana, and I just needed a title. Obviously, autistic people should do whatever they feels right for them. Lots and lots of autistic people are parents and have been parents. And like the rest of the general population, some of us will be really good at it, some of us will be okay at it, and some of us will be bad at it. I just needed a title. I am not at all implying that in any way should autistic people not be allowed to have children, be prevented from having children. I think we should be able to do whatever we think is best for us. And you know, if you need a bit of support to decide what's best for you, that's also all groovy. But I'm not saying shit, essentially. I just needed a title. I'm aware of how it sounds. It's the best thing I could think of. So I'm 25, and at the start of this year, I split up from my long-term boyfriend of like 8 years. So we'd obviously had quite a few conversations about children, and we were always very back and forth. Mostly because I'm very back and forth, and it was always a hypothetical. I've never been at a financial or emotional point in my life where I was like, I could do a child. So it was never anything serious, but it's just hypothetical discussion that comes up. And I'm still very, very back and forth, because I don't feel like it's so much about if I want kids. I feel like it's kind of more if I can do kids, you know? I think it's all too easy to look at a baby and be like, oh my god, it's so cute, I want children. And it's like, no, I kind of just want to hold that baby, and then when it starts spitting up or it needs a nappy change or whatever, I'd much rather pass it back to whoever it actually belongs to. Controversial, I think far too many people have children just because they want children and don't consider if they would be a good parent. Whereas for me, I very much think about if I would be a good parent, if I should have kids, you know? And I think being autistic adds extra like struggles and barriers and thoughts and opinions to that for me personally. So I wanted to take this video to get into that. And the number one thing that I want to start with, genes. Kids are gonna inherit things from me, you know? Chances are, if I have a biological child, it's gonna be autistic. And that's an autistic person. I don't know if I could handle that. You know, I'm aware it sounds kind of bad, but I don't know what kind of kid's gonna be popping out, you feel me? I don't think I would be a good parent to like a non-verbal autistic kid. I don't think that I have the patience or like the general social skills and the way that you pick up on people. I don't think I have the skills necessary to provide a non-verbal child with the things they need. Like, you haven't told me you're hungry in 3 days, so I'm guessing that you're probably not hungry. You don't want to eat. Like, I'm not that stupid, but you get what I mean. Like, if I had a kid that just cannot express any needs to me, I would be a terrible parent because I wouldn't think about things. I think there's lots and lots of things that I would forget even if I had a child telling me, which again is also a possibility. I don't know what kind of kid I would have. But I wanted to mention that first because I do think it's a very high possibility. And I think that I would already struggle with like a completely neurotypical, like the perfect model child. I think I would struggle being a parent to, honestly. So anything that isn't the perfect model child, I think I would just increasingly struggle with. And your responsibility as a parent is to be able to overcome those struggles and help the child. And I'm not sure I'd be able to be. You know, I don't know if I'd be able to do that. I think my parents failed in a lot of ways, but they also did a lot of very like self-sacrifice and things to help me out. And I don't think I would be able to do the same. I don't think I'd want to. I don't think I would. So I wanted to mention that, but I am going to continue the rest of the video assuming that if I had a child, they'd be sort of like me. So I assume it'd be able to act in the way that I did as a kid. It'd be reading loads of books and be a bit annoying. So that's how we're going to proceed with this video. But the thing is as well, I don't like children. And I know there's been loads of discourse around this lately, and I would say I hate them. I hate children. They're loud, they're unnecessary, their little brains aren't formed, so they're just sort of stupid and mushy and they don't know anything, and you have to over-explain every little thing, and they want attention and they just constantly want, you know, it's a lot. That being said, every child's going to grow up to be an adult, and I think that they all deserve to be treated with respect and humility and empathy. And, you know, I'd never be horrible to a child. I recently ended up spending a day around a load of like 8-year-olds, and it's one of them where the whole time I was like, oh my god. On the inside, on the outside, I was like, oh my god, that is an incredible butterfly you just did. You're so good at that. That is brilliant. Well done. And I don't like them, you know. I would never ever let them know that, but I don't like them. And the main reason I don't like them is because they kick off. I mean, aside from all the things I just said, but they also kick off a lot of sensory difficulties for me. They make random noises that are loud or high-pitched. They're sticky and dirty, and like, my last boss had a little boy, and he was adorable. He was a lovely little kid, you know, like, as much as I hate them, he was a nice one. I liked that kid quite a fair bit. Like, he was a really good kid, actually. But he'd passed his bottle of fruit shoot to his dad once with this, like, fuck off big, like, glob of just like, whatever the fuck comes out of babies, man. It's gross. They're disgusting. I don't want to touch that. Like, I don't care if it's my own baby that's come out of me. I don't want to touch something that's just all sticky and slimy. It makes me feel sick to think about. So if my baby's just, like, vomited all over itself in its crib, someone else needs to deal with it. I wouldn't be able to. Like, it's such a sensory difficulty for me with any sort of, like, I don't want anyone's bodily fluids on my hands. Like, not even my own, never mind a baby's. And I really... You know, it's one of those things where I'm sure if I had my baby right then, it was covered in shit, which it might actually be, I'm sure I'd like pick it up and go and wash it, but I'd be gagging and heaving and feeling terrible the whole time, and I don't want to put myself through that. And I'm sure the baby wouldn't particularly enjoy me like washing it or be like, either, you know? Like, it's not going to be a good situation for anyone. Alongside that, I have a lot of hyperfixations. If my kid starts crying during Doctor Who, bitch, don't, you know? Like, if it's a new episode, do not. If it's an old one, I'd pause it and be like, oh, why are you crying? Or pick it up, or whatever you do with kids. I don't even know. But yeah, I have a lot of hyperfixations, and the chances are I wouldn't leave them for my kid, I don't think, honestly. I don't think, you know, like, sometimes when I'm up here and I'll be like watching something or like reading something, Rich will come up and be like, I've shouted you like 4 times, and I'm like, I didn't hear a thing. There's every chance that my kid would be like sobbing in the next room and I wouldn't even notice until someone pointed it out, you know? And alongside that, as they get older, I quite often have hyperfixations on food stuff where I'm like, I can only eat this one meal. So if I am cooking for a kid, unless they also just want that one meal, they're stuck just getting that one meal anyway. Because I'm not like making multiple stuff. I don't have the energy for that. I don't even have the energy to cook anyway half the time, to be honest with you. Never mind cooking a meal for me and then having to cook a separate meal for my child. But again, I do think that, like, you know, I would try my best if I did get stuck with a kid. I would try my best to make sure it was okay. So I think that would reduce to me like making the kid a meal so I've got the energy to, and then me not eating myself, and then what's happening to me? You know, like, I get that parents are meant to be self-sacrificing, but I don't want to completely screw myself over just to have a kid that I didn't really feel any extreme desire for. Maybe it should have come first, but I also have like an entire thing about pregnancy. It freaks me the fuck out. There's just a little parasite living inside of you, leaking out, like leaching your calcium, and like it just lives in there for like 9 months. It just lives there and grows, and you have to like grow it and carry it around, and it can press out. Like those videos you see on TikTok of like babies' hands pressing against the mother's stomach. I can't do it. It's disgusting. I'm sorry. I completely understand that it's supposed to be a beautiful thing that everyone else adores, but it just makes me feel sick. It's like something out of Alien. I don't like it. I really don't know. Like, purely just off of that, I don't know if I could ever face being pregnant. Never mind then you've got like don't your feet swell, your back aches, shit can happen to your teeth, your hair can fall out. Like, it all just sounds like something out of an absolute horror movie, and I don't think I would enjoy or want a moment of it. And honestly, I think it would get to a point of me just like sitting in a corner rocking back and forth wondering why the fuck I'd ever done it to myself. It just, the idea horrifies me. You know, like, God help me if I ended up having like an actually difficult pregnancy. I would not make it through. I don't know what I'd do. It terrifies me. It's so scary. And then once it's born, how do you look after it? What do you do? You know? Like, I'm sure I have some instincts. I'm not, you know, a completely inept person. But I do assume that as an autistic person, I wouldn't have as many motherly instincts as a neurotypical person would. And even then, I don't think that most people do. I think that's such a myth and leads to people being poor parents because they assume they're supposed to just know what to do. And I wouldn't know what to do. You know, when I've held babies in the past, people have had to really like move my arms to like cradle their head properly and stuff, because I have no idea. Like, I get that like the baby's next week and its head's huge, so you've got to keep the head up, but I don't get how like having its head like here versus, you know, I don't get it. I think I might snap my baby's neck by accident if I had one. I would be very, very like, I think I'd be scared to pick it up as a newborn. I think someone else would have to, because I would be terrified of breaking it, you know? And as a woman, I was like raised with the expectation of one day having kids. And yet, I know all of these words, like you swaddle a baby and you do tummy time, floor time, you do something time with a baby. You know, there's all these words and phrases that I've picked up from like being expected to one day carry children, but I don't actually know what any of them are or how to do any of them. And from my experience in life so far, I highly doubt anyone's there to explain it to you. You know, you just, as far as I'm aware, and this could be entirely wrong, if you've had children and know better than me, please comment below. But I sort of assume you've got these like 9 months of pregnancy, you pop out the kid after like 30 hours of horrific pain, and boom, you've got a baby, go home. Like, I know you stay in hospital like overnight a lot of the time. I think you stay in hospital overnight a lot of the time. But then you've just got this baby for the next 18 years. You've just got to keep looking after it and feeding it and clothing it and listening to it. And you've got to encourage it and support it. And you've, like, everything it needs has to come from you for so long. And that's just horrifying. How am I supposed to provide all of that? I can just about provide half of what I need as a person. And all of a sudden, you've got a whole nother person that you're supposed to provide everything for, while also making sure you're giving them everything they need, like mentally, to not end up being a screwed up little individual like me that needs therapy as an adult. How? You know, and I know people always say like, oh, well, there's no handbook. And it's like, that's the thing though, my dude. There's loads of handbooks and loads of them say all completely different things. So how the hell are you supposed to know what you're doing right? And I know that the answer is you don't. You don't know if you're doing anything right. And that's why parenting is hard and why some people need therapy when you grow up. Like, I get it. But I don't really get how parents cannot be constantly crippled with anxiety over that. It's absolutely mind-blowing to me, now that I'm actually thinking about it, that like you pop out a kid and you raise a whole ass person, and you've just got to really like hope that you're doing the right thing. Like, you do not know, and that's horrifying. That's so scary, and I don't think I would be able to cope with the existential dread of that. Right at the end here though, with all of that being said, I actually personally quite like the idea of adopting an older child. I think that like maybe like a 12-year-old or upwards, I might be able to be quite a good parent to. I think that, you know, like, not for a while, don't get me wrong, but I think from like the person that I'm growing into now or whatever, I do think that like I will one day be able to like offer like good emotional support to a child or like a teen, you know, that kind of age group, 12 upwards. I think that I could like, on a personal, emotional level, parent them quite well. You know, maybe it's very naive of me because I am still very young, but I do kind of like to think that I could be like the cool parent that teaches them that like drugs and alcohol aren't that cool, kids, and it's more important what you like do like spiritually and within yourself and blah 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 blah. I just think that I would be able to like cope and give good life lessons and form an actual bond with that kind of age. But like babies and toddlers and young children scare the fuck out of me, and I have no idea how you're supposed to interact with them. So I feel like boosting to a slightly older kid, I do feel like I might be able to be an okay parent. You know, and I feel like it also like, it depends who you're gonna have kids with. You know, I'm not at that point, I don't know who I'm gonna have them with. Maybe my partner would be like someone absolutely incredible. It means that I would barely have to parent. I think that's what I'm looking for. Someone else do it for me. Yeah, but finally, before I go, I again want to point out that lots of autistic people are already parents and they're great at it. There's, you know, there's shit ones too. With any neurotype you want to have a look at, there's got to be a whole spectrum and range of different types of people, because that's how humanity works. But there are lots and lots of autistic parents that are fantastic parents and provide every little tiny minuscule thing that my kid could possibly want or need, you know? Just because I don't think I would be a good parent at the minute from my thoughts and opinions, you know, I don't know, because there is a part of me that deeply wants kids eventually, don't get me wrong, but I just don't know if I'll actually be good at it. That's this whole video, is me saying I'd like to, but I don't know if I'd be very good. But there's lots and lots of autistic people that are very, very good parents. It's just that we're all different people, you know? Like, that's the point that I really want to drive home a lot of the time. It's just that all autistic people are different, and we all face things differently and experience things differently. And especially after a video as negative as this, I do want to point out that there's loads of really great autistic parents. And, you know, be their kids neurotypical, be their kids a different neurotype, be their kids autistic as well. They're brilliant with them, and it's heartwarming and amazing and admirable, and it's a great, great thing. But I think also for lots of us, it's perhaps something that we're really scared about, because we don't know if we'd be very good. We don't know, you know, we don't necessarily know if we would be able to, like, realistically cope with a child, or if we'd just end up being a really shit parent. And, you know, it's a horrifying thought that you could bring a child into the world and then be an awful parent. It's really scary, and I don't want to do that. So, you know, I think it should take a lot of thought before you have kids. And it's probably good that I'm putting the thought in now, like 5, 10, 15 years before I'm gonna pop one out. I think that's what people should be doing. We should be taking it very seriously, because it is very serious. It's a whole ass fucking human being. It's so weird. It's so weird to me. So if you've got any comments, any discussion, any thoughts, I would love to hear them down below. And I'm gonna go now, because I keep remembering what pregnant women look like. Like, not what pregnant women look like. Pregnant women are beautiful. It's brilliant what you're doing, like, don't get me wrong. But specifically pregnant women's stomachs, when their babies, like, press a limb up and you can see that there's a fucking tiny person in. Goodbye. Whoever you are, wherever you are, I hope you're having a lovely morning, day, afternoon, week, month, year. And I'll see you again in a few days.